topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, Missouri and Tennessee. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts for the last 16 years, top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Hey, this is the last Friday of the month. It's 2 o'clock Eastern time, and that means the attorney Lance Drury show. Good afternoon, Lance.
How you doing, Steve? It's great to be here, and it's beautiful in Missouri today. It's going to be in the low 70s. It's going to get colder again, but at least we're going to enjoy today.
Well, you know, I never brag about we're here in Florida because I know you get some cold weather in the St. Louis area. But Lance, I want to tell people kind of a behind the scene. We were talking before the show. You've been with us for about a year, and we have shows that have been with us 10 or 12 years, and you have already surpassed their numbers. And I was telling Lance, we get so many people who just enjoy watching or listening to your show, and the numbers from YouTube definitely show it. But what you've done, because I have come to learn you are such a hard worker. What you have developed with your law firm is just amazing. I'm so in awe of what you're doing, Lance. And you're doing this to help people who are in a big jam with the IRS. And it doesn't get any worse than that. But I just want to compliment you on what you're doing with the show. People love the way you communicate. They love your stories. They love your kind of, your old style form of attorney. And you're bringing it to the era now. And you're just helping so many people. I just had to let people know about our conversation before the show.
Yeah, it's amazing. Donna, who's retiring this year, she's been with me 15 years.
Wow.
And she just, it blows her mind. You know, we went from having 40, 50, 60 clients. Now we've got right at 1,000 clients.
Amazing.
And I'm hoping the day comes when we have 2,000 because I wanted to grow the firm. Steve, I've said this many times before. I think we have a moral responsibility to help as many people as possible. I instill that in my staff. I instill that in my fellow attorneys. That's why we're here. We're here to save Fay Ray from the clutches of King Kong, as I like to say, Steve.
Well, I got to tell you, there's a couple things I want to share with you that I've been doing this for a long time, and this is not the norm. We get so many people writing us, how come the show's not longer? Now, think about it. If a show is interesting to you, you could care less if it wasn't long enough. So that's one thing. And the other thing we hear from people is, I'm going to tell a friend of mine about you. And I think that is just. And then one other thing, we probably have had 4 or 5 big law firms around the country who have watched your show, wondering how they can get a show like yours. So, hey, listen, when the competition says that, Lance, you know you're doing something good.
Well, we try, Steve. That's what we're here for. That's what I've dedicated my whole life for, and I've always been on the side of the underdog. Prior to doing this kind of work, I did public defender work. So I've always been on the side of the guy that needs somebody to speak on their behalf to protect their interests against the overwhelming power of the government. So, that's what we do here, because people that try to do this on their own, they just eat you up and spit you out. They're going to take advantage of lay people because they know that a lay person does not know how the game is played. And everybody thinks this is easy. Steve, when I was a small town lawyer, 15 hours of continuing legal education a year. Now, myself and all of my attorneys, and I just hired another attorney out of Ohio this week, yesterday, in fact, we spend 50 to 100 hours a year or more just keeping up on this stuff because they're a bureaucracy. Everything changes. And so we've got to spend the time to render the best possible service for our clients. And so we got to spend that much time on continuing legal education about the IRS.
Well, I promised everybody in our promotion that we were going to really dedicate it to business owners today. So we've got so many questions on that. Let me start off with Craig in Nashville. He said, I understand the IRS has a broad legal authority to collect unpaid taxes. Does that include taking funds directly from a business bank account?
Absolutely. Yeah. And not only a business bank account, but they can go after people that owe money to you. And that's when these small businesses get in trouble. They don't want that to happen because it can destroy their business, because somebody doesn't want to do business with somebody who has problems with the IRS because it creates more paperwork for them. So absolutely, they can wipe out their bank account. That is why people need professional help. You cannot do this on your own. I have seen so many people just make their situation worse by thinking they could do this on their own. I got a story to tell you. I may have told it to you before. A guy out of Nashville, for 10 years, he'd been fighting the IRS. He was in his 50s. He was on his fourth revenue officer. Well, they never came after him or done anything. And this last one was really aggressive. And he said, they've all lied to me. They've always told me different things. So he had $1 million liability. So we quoted him a nice retainer, and he hemmed and hawed around. He didn't hire us. 2 weeks later, they took every asset he owned, including his retirement, over $300,000. And at that point, there was probably nothing we could do to help him, because it would have been a hard sell to talk to that revenue officer and say, hey, get all this back to him and let's sit down and work all this out. But he was in his 50s, and they took every asset he had.
Unbelievable. This is kind of a question I don't know if you get much of. It's from Deronda in Memphis. She said, I started watching your show 4 months ago. I have a big problem. My husband owes the IRS. I have pleaded with him to contact your office and let him know this is not going to go away. It's affecting our marriage. What can I tell my husband who keeps procrastinating?
Well, guess what? Most of the time, it's the men who get in trouble, and it's the women who get on them to get the problem rectified. Either they're married or they want to get married, and the woman says, I'm not marrying you till you get rid of this problem. You got to take care of it. So, yeah, I mean, if he continues to ignore this, they're eventually going to come catch up with him. They can wipe out his bank account. They can take 90% of his take-home pay. They can take 100% of his 1099s. So, for the most part, sometimes delay is a good tactic when the clock on collections is running out, because the IRS doesn't have forever to collect the monies from you. But for the most part, delay is not a good tactic with the taxing authorities. They'll eventually catch up with him. Now, they are a bureaucracy and things do fall through the cracks, but he needs professional help because, you know, it's not going to be pretty if they do catch up with him. And it's going to be a rude awakening if he just does nothing.
Ron in Memphis, I heard the other day about something that's called voluntary disclosure agreement. Do you know what that is?
I can tell you now, I don't think we've ever done one of these types of cases, but those voluntary disclosure agreements take part when you have monies overseas. So there is now, you cannot keep X amount of monies, or you have to report it to the federal government. And years ago, these foreign countries did not have agreements with the U.S. government, and those financial institutions did not have agreements with the U.S. government, but they do now. And so if you don't fill out the proper forms and send them in to the IRS, they can come after you, and the penalties are huge for non-disclosure. So if you come, I can tell you a little about it. So if you come forward and do this voluntary disclosure, the ramifications are going to be a lot more lenient than if you wait and let the IRS come after you. If you want me to go into any details on that, I probably can't, just because even though we would help people with that, this firm really doesn't have any experience because of the location of our offices.
Well, we've got so many other questions. Let me go on to Tracy in Knoxville. Should a business that owes back taxes immediately file all required returns, then establish a payment plan?
Well, you're not going to get a payment plan until at least the last 6 years' tax returns have been prepared and filed. There's no way the government is going to talk to you about an agreement on the back taxes until you become compliant. And that means you have to file the last 6 years' tax returns. Secondly, you better start making estimated tax payments, because they're going to require that as well. But guess what? Here's the biggest mistake small business owners make when they do it on their own. They don't want to get levied. They call the IRS. They set up an agreement. It's always for the full amount, every last penny. And then because they have this agreement, which is beyond their means, they can't make their estimated tax payments, and the liability just spirals out of control. Mm-hmm. So you want to make those estimated tax payments for two reasons. It makes sure that you're compliant moving forward, and you got to stay compliant, because the deal's going to go down the drain on the back taxes if you don't move forward paying your taxes on time. But secondly, here's the beauty of it, Steve. You can get a better deal on the back taxes, because those estimated tax payments for the current year's taxes are an allowable expense in determining your ability to pay on the back taxes. So I'm just going to give you an example. If you're paying $1,500 a month every month to the IRS for estimated tax payments, that's $15 less a month you're going to have to pay on the back taxes. So you could really save yourself a chunk of change on paying those back taxes if you're making those estimated tax payments.
William in Chattanooga says, I really enjoy your show. I have so much respect now after listening to you. What is the biggest mistake the businesses make that get them in trouble with the IRS?
Well, probably not paying their taxes on time. That, and they don't keep good records. And then when the time comes to prove up, if you get audited, if you don't have the documentation, you're not going to be allowed to take those expenses. The other thing is, you need to have a separate bank account for the business. You need to segregate your personal income, your personal expenses from your business income and your business expenses. And it makes it easier on you to determine your profit, because you can look at that business account on the first day of the month, see how much is there. You can look at it on the last day of the month And bingo, the difference is your profit for the month. So those are some of the biggest. And the other thing is, everybody thinks running a small business is the American dream. Well, guess what? It's not. Most small businesses don't make a whole lot of money. You got to fund your own retirement. You got to pay for your own health care. And then there's all kinds of paperwork and all kinds of regulations people don't even know about when they go into business for themselves. So one of the things that I've thought about doing here, Steve, because, we want these people to stay compliant so they never need our services again, is that setting up some type of structure whereby we make sure that those people are doing what they need to do to maintain a viable business after we've solved their tax problem, so they don't run into those issues again. And, the bigger problem is a lot of self-employed people work long hours, and the last thing they want to do when they get home at 7, 8 o'clock at night is to do paperwork. But you know what? My clients are procrastinators, and that's what happens with the small business people. They procrastinate, and it just kind of snowballs. And what was a minor problem now is totally out of control and needs professional assistance.
Cindy in Gatlinburg, I don't know if that's Missouri or Tennessee.
That should be Tennessee. That's down around the Smokies, I think.
Okay. She said, I want to tell people I am a business owner, and since I found your show, I never miss one now. Thank you for educating us. I'm curious, can the IRS take my personal assets like my gold and silver, which I keep in a safe?
Theoretically, yes. I don't know that I've ever seen that, but here's the thing. It depends on the structure of your business. So if you're incorporated, this is the reason why people incorporate. They can't come after your personal stuff because you have a separate legal entity for the business. But if you're a sole proprietor, you don't have a separate legal structure, so they can go against your personal income, your personal assets. Obviously, on a financial statement, you're going to have to list that gold and silver. But I don't think I've done this for more than 20 years now, Steve. I don't think I've ever seen the federal government go after gold and silver, but I'm not saying that theoretically they could not do that.
Okay. Julie in Kansas City, always a great show. I want to know if you missed the tax deadline or simply couldn't afford your small business tax bill and got behind, could a person face penalties and other issues?
Absolutely. Penalties and interest. Penalties for failure to pay and interest. And Steve, I've probably said it before, but if you and I charged what the federal government charges for penalties and interest, we'd be in the federal clink. And but they can do that. And so you want to make sure. And the other thing is, and this comes up all the time, people fill out their tax form. They owe monies. They can't afford to pay it. So they don't file their tax return because they don't want to have to be put on the radar. Big mistake, because the failure to file penalty is 5% a month for the first 5 months. It maxes out at 25%. But if you got a $10,000 tax liability, you've just elevated it to $12,500. And we're not even talking about the penalty for failure to pay and the interest. So file those tax returns on time, even if you can't pay the liability.
I want to interject something because I do so much due diligence, over the last 16 years. And I got to tell people something that, first of all, Lance has got an incredible Google rating. I mean, it's amazing. And I want to tell you that if you read on the Google, actually it's more than some, people say how they paid their money to these companies and they could never get them to return a phone call, and how upset they were with this. Lance, we don't have those problems with your firm.
No, we're a 4.7 out of 5 on Google reviews in St. Louis. We're a 4.9 out of 5 in Nashville, Tennessee. But, I tell everybody that there's 3 rules if you don't hire me. Hire an attorney that does this every single day. Do not get somebody that dabbles in this. It's a lot of work. It's a niche area. You got to spend a lot of time. There are rules that a practitioner has to know to get his client the best possible deal. And every attorney in my offices has seen accountants make atrocious mistakes. And why is that? Because the accountants are great at what they do, which is prepare the returns, but they just dabble in IRS work. Number 2, go local. We got people in all these local offices. And number 3, don't hire one of the big boys. They just take your money and they never tell you how much it's going to be up front, and they don't do any work. There's the industry, Steve, gets a bad name. There's a lot of scam artists out there, but that's mostly the ones from the big national firms. They come to us after they've spent $20,000 or more with these companies because they never do anything for them. So, But in fairness, now I have to warn people, things are taking much longer with the IRS now than ever before. And then with the shutdown, it made it even worse. I have never seen the IRS as bad as it is now. So you're talking 9 months to a year, sometimes more, to get resolutions with the IRS because everything's taken forever because they're understaffed. They're not properly trained in the automated collection system. So, you didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get you out overnight, but we will get your problem resolved for you.
You brought up such a great point for you business owners, and we have so many of you out there. You don't want to sit on the phone 2 hours on hold. You got to run your business. You don't have time to do that. It's worth its weight in gold to hire a firm like Lance Drury. Let them do all the legwork, and you can run your business. It's so important. Lance, your show goes by so fast. I've got so many questions for our next show. I want to tell people, if you would like to tune in Monday at, I believe it's at 9:25 Eastern Standard Time, we have our national show. We would love to have you tune in this Monday. Lance, how do people, now everybody can see your phone number and your website, but we have so many people listening on iHeart and radio. How do people reach your office?
Go to lancedrurylaw.com, Lance, DRURY law.com. All of the phone numbers will be there. To be honest with you, Steve, I don't know all the phone numbers because we have a toll-free number and we got 5 different offices. So the last thing I'm going to do is sit there and memorize all those phone numbers, but go to the website and you'll know how to contact us.
Absolutely. Hey, we will see you Monday, Lance. Have a wonderful weekend.
You do the same, Steve. It's always a great pleasure to be with you.
We love having you on. That's attorney Lance Drury. Folks, I'm telling you, if you've got a tax problem, you want to contact, it's Lance Drury, attorney Lance Drury. We're going to go to a break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.